Uh, but anyway, this is Reginal Drummer, the Peopleologist, coming to you live on this Father's Day. And I'd like to say a shout out to my dad, Preston Drummer, uh, 90 years young. Had hoped to have him on the show, but he just took a power nap. And if you saw some of the things that we shared earlier with him and my cousin who's 96, and believe it or not, both of those gentlemen are still driving. But when we think about our fathers, we think about things that they put into us. My dad's favorite quote is work hard, play hard, and stay out of trouble. Work hard, play hard, and stay out of trouble. So that's his quote. I'm sticking to it. And as we find out more about our dads, and we see that we have a lot in common with our fathers. I don't care how you look at it, how you think about it, so many things that we do share in common. I encourage everyone to join us over on Facebook and Instagram to come on over to Square Mile Media Atlanta and like that page. Like that page. So no matter where you are with your father, fathers play a powerful role, especially black fathers. Sometimes the situations might be somewhat cloudy. Sometimes the situations might not be what you wanted to be. And then sometimes you might have wanted more from your father. There are people that want more, or sometimes you might want it less from your father. But either way, uh, this day that we use to honor our fathers is a powerful thing. I think somewhere in the scripture it says something about honoring your father and your mother. Days will be longer upon the land. People that are genuinely influenced by their dads typically embrace the world from a different angle. Okay, if you're, and I'll just throw this out there: if you ever see a junior, a senior, a number three, a number two, you know there's a lineage of fatherhood. There's a granddaddy, great granddaddy, all that, and they have a certain thing, a certain behavior in which they pass down. They pass down. So usually in those particular situations, if you the just like George Foreman, if you George Foreman the fifth, you got a lot to live up to because the third, the second, the first, and the senior all put something in you. You see what I'm saying? So when we look at our fathers, we get a lot of that. And like I say, and I found this out today, my great grandfather, William Drummer. William Drummer. That was my that was my great grandfather, William Drummer. And that's how we get the drummer name. So you find out a lot when you have a conversation. If your father is still alive, definitely you want to have a conversation with him. And I brought some people on board tonight because, we're going to glorify men and dads, say something good about them, even if you had a bad experience with your dad. Certain things they made you do when you was growing up, you didn't see the importance of it. You might not have thought that it was valuable. And you say, well, but it made you prepared, and it prepared you and got you ready. Because one of the things, uh, getting ready for life, you need some type of father figure. Somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to, move and motivate you sometimes, and it might not be what you like. It might not be what you like, but guess what? It's definitely what you need. So I'm about to bring my guests on board and let them share a couple key things about their relationships with their dads. We have a dad, Brother Zach, and we have a lady. I know you have a father, but we'll just bring you. How y'all doing this evening?
Doing good. How
Doing
are
great.
you?
Doing great. How you
Uh,
doing, Reggie?
as we said earlier, a couple of my favorite people.
All right
Yeah,
then. All right then.
yeah.
Don't rub it in.
I have to steal some lines every now and then. But maybe y'all can introduce yourself. Well, Sylvia, we'll start with you. You can, say a little bit about yourself, but definitely in a quick snapshot. If you want to say something about your father or even your husband, we got to say a shout out to uh, the main man out there, Brother Hobby. Yeah, he's a dad on
Okay.
duty.
Yeah.
Original.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, shout out to Hobby. He's a great father. My name is Sylvia Hayes. I'm an author, producer, director. What else? Uh, and a mother. No, can't leave the mothers out. I want to say this is a great day to celebrate Father's Day. And I know there's a lot of memories for fathers, bad or good. But one memory I want to share with my father, the earliest and the only thing I remember about my father as far as punishing me was when I first started the school. I was in the first grade. There was this little boy on there. Well, he was a big boy. He was in high school. And he told one of the kids on the bus, I'm going to beat your B-U-T. I'm going to beat your B-U-T. And I came home and I told my siblings, I'm going to beat your B-U-T. And my dad said, yeah, and I'm going to beat your B-U-T too. And he with me. I didn't even know what B-U-T spelled, but I was getting a whipping for it. From then on, I didn't tell my siblings I was going to beat their B-U-T. And that is the only time I ever known that I remember ever being punished by my father. And he was really a sweet person. He really was.
Okay. All righty then. Okay.
Yeah.
Brother Zach. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I guess my turn. So, I remember some things about my father. My father, first of all, he was a team father, and he was a good. Well, he was a regular guy. He was a regular guy. I knew him as a young man. I didn't realize he was young because I was, a little child, little baby, little boy. And but there's some things. My daddy wasn't perfect, but he did a lot of. He was impressive, and he. I'm like Sylvia. I'm a producer. I live in Atlanta. I attended school in Atlanta, and I produce programs as well. But back to fathers, yeah, my dad made some impressions on me, both good and bad. But the thing that I most remember is that I used to throw rocks when I was a kid and broke a window or two, and I even got in trouble going to the store with my friends and taking something that we didn't pay for. But one thing about my dad, my dad always prayed. He didn't go to church all the time, but when he went to church, he taught Sunday school, so that stuck with us. And there's some things that me and my sisters did because I'm the only boy of 5 siblings, because he had my mother, and there's some things we would do, and we would get a whipping for him. But there were some times when we did something we thought you were gonna get a whipping. He said, "I'm not gonna whip you this time. I think you learned your lesson," and that made a big impression on us. And then my dad used to at times get us and come home sometime and say, Nuki, he called my mother Nuki. Where my kids at? She they in bed. I want to talk to my kids. And my mother said, Harold, they in the bed asleep. I want to talk to my kids. So he'd get us and we sit around. We've been in a little semicircle and he talked to us and tell us about, loving God and respecting our mother and such. And I always felt like we could have done more things together. And we need to have spent more time together. I always felt that. But there are some things that we did together, but we should have spent a lot more time. But my dad was a good guy. I do embody some of his traits, and I respect the institution of fatherhood, especially as it has been given down to mankind from on high.
Okay. I'm fortunate. My daddy, he's still here. He's 90 years old, 90 years young, still drives. I would say I became closer to my dad after I got older.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and father separated when we were 6.
Mm-hmm.
But my first memories, and I got in trouble when I was in the first grade. I told my dad this story the other day. My dad had a beauty supply business, and it was Drummer's Beauty Supply.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote my name in the first grade. I wrote Drummer, took up half the page.
Okay. Yeah.
The teacher was not impressed.
So that's one of the impacts that your father had on you. You saw him as a business person, and if I'm not mistaken, you're a business person, right? You're on a business.
Yes.
Yeah. So you talked earlier about things that we emulate this embodiedness that was in our parents. So that's one thing right there.
Oh yes. Because you never and welcome there, Miss Grace White. How you doing out there, my sister? Sharing all this information about our fathers, and how they influence us. But just like my dad, like I said, when I was in the first grade, and I still write my name big, Drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and this is another sidebar conversation. I was in, I think it might have been Philly up in New Jersey, and the brothers. I was dealing with that was one of my first times, dealing with some brothers from the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, well, you come to the nation, you got to change that name, you got to be an X. Well, I ain't gonna take no X, I'll take a D.
See, you can't be you.
Yeah, I said, I'll take a D for Drummer, but
okay, brother D.
Love that name.
Yeah.
Love that name so much. So I love the name Drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Drummer. And if you look at a lot of stuff that I've done over the years, it was drummer work, drum works, drumming up business. You just do drummer.
Okay. All right.
And another comment in my family circle, since I got my dad, they almost always call us Drummer first. What's up, Drummer?
Okay.
So in order to clarify, the order, because we're not a junior, senior, none of that type stuff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Dad, he's the original one.
Mm-hmm.
My older brother Leon is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
My twin brother Greg is number 1, and I'm number 2, and then my sister is the only one, and then my younger brother is the last one.
Yeah. Well, and having a father, we get a lot from other men and our fathers, because, we see how he move around, how he interact with other men, how he respond, and the things we get a chance to hear his values and things like that, and so it gives us a model, to whether we take it or not, we have a model that we can use to help us along in life.
And that's true. And that's why it's important in the family. And I think any family, the male figure is necessary. Even in my family, I have a stepson, but he he does a lot of the way I do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So at some point, you know, I was able to influence, even though not biologically, but some of the principles and things of that nature.
But you know,
So when,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
but yeah, but that's how influential a male is in the
Yeah.
family. Go
I
ahead.
think I think go for women too. I'm sure they had those experiences. But you know, even if you didn't know your father or your mother, and sometimes you still end up growing up with some of their characteristics, their traits, not just
Yeah,
physical, but you know, their personalities and the way they um, characteristics. You know.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I don't know did she make it, but a lady friend would share with me, Letitia, that her mother died when they were like 6 or something like that. So their daddy had to raise them.
Mm-hmm.
So when a man has to step up and raise his daughter, especially daughters,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's a difficult process. Mothers sometimes when they have to raise their children, you know, they make a major sacrifice because some mothers don't never get married or nothing, because they just take care of the kids. They become a mother hen. Well,
Mhm.
in his case, he had to raise 3 daughters, and he had to make sure they had all the things they needed to have, and and then take some ridicule because it was not normal,
Yeah.
especially for a black man, to
Yeah.
raise 3 girls. So when we think about things like that, that almost makes me think about the history of our people because we're able to step up. Now, certain things have gotten out of hand, but I think all in all, a lot of things change when men step up to the plate. I know we started an organization, oh man, almost 20 years ago. Dad's on duty with Fred, and we would come in and get men. And a lot of times uh, we were trying to find a purpose. We said, well, what can we do? Because everybody had a mentoring group or something like that. And we said, first thing we need to do is help ourselves.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
and you can do that and we can do that by doing what we're doing now. And you know, I guess it was last year, year before last, and you might have saw it aired where I got the men in my family, and we sat down and we talked about our fathers. We talked about we weren't there to say anything bad about our father. We wanted whether your relationship with your dad was good or not. You know, we wanted to just say something good about fathers and. You know, so you know, fathers but I remember my dad. You know, there was 5 children, and I was the oldest. So when my mother would go to the hospital because she was delivering, my dad had to step in and try and do the things that a woman do for the children, plait their hair and the cooking. You know, and in the older days, in the early days, 'cause I was born in the 50s. You know, I don't. As far as I remember, maybe men didn't do as much household stuff, and as they do these days. So it was probably real challenging for a lot of men. You know, my grandfather, my mother's mother passed when she was 2 years old. So her dad raised her. You know,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah. I'm sure it was challenging. It's even challenging these days, even when men are doing more in the households and doing, because women are different than men, physically and emotionally, and so you know, yeah.
Yeah, it can be a challenge though for men to raise children because
Mm.
women are bonded to their
Mm-hmm.
kids more so than men are. But
Mm-hmm.
men, they have a duty to do. They got to do this. They got to take care, make sure they get food and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But women, there is an emotional bond. There, some men now, I guess you could say they have emotional bonds too, but it's not the same as women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But,
and then
but men,
a woman, a woman just have that woman's touch that children need. That's why when I guess when the Creator, whomever you believe in, created a people, he created a man, and then he didn't do what he should have did from the beginning. He's saying, wait a minute, I gotta go. I'm not done yet, because you can't just put a man there. So that male construct is vital in the lives of people, and the female construct is vital.
Yeah, and I think that's why men are harder disciplinary than women are, because women are too soft. I don't say they're too soft, but they are softer than men, and because men don't have the emotional bond that the women have, they're stricter and tighter and make the kids do what they need to do easier than it takes for a woman to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that man is out there.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me, I think that's, and there's some other people play the role. I think that's in Fences, Denzel Washington talking to his son, and he said, like you. I ain't got to like you.
Yeah, right.
I ain't got to like you. That's my responsibility. He goes into this whole thing. And I think that was the mindset, like you say, today, you have men get a lot more involved. I've seen men run around carrying the baby on front. You see some of these young brothers, they got the baby in a baby suit up front, carrying the baby.
Now,
back in the day, men just wasn't going to be doing that. The woman carried that baby in her stomach and then carried the baby. You didn't catch that many brothers pushing a stroller.
Yeah. And some instances today, you see there are things that men tend not to do. It's like they don't fall into the category of the male or the macho male, and it's what women do. It was like that when I was coming up, but as I grew up, and I was different. I read the Bible and stuff, and so I learned to, to be kind, to be helpful, and all those kind of things. And so it didn't. I don't look at something as being male, or being for men. Whatever needs to be done, we get it done together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the Bible, my mom took us to church, but I think, my parents separated when I was young too. But when we go to my dad's church, he teach us how to find stuff in the Bible. Man, we had Bible drills.
Mm-hmm.
And as an adult, I really felt proud when the pastor say, turn to Philippines or
Philippians.
Yeah, Philippians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go straight to it because my father taught me how to do that.
Yeah.
He taught me where everything was in the Bible. Can I do that now? No. But he taught me, at a young age, and I knew it then.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've gotten out of it.
Yeah. And
and teach you stuff. I know my father, he was a gentle person. I've never known for him to get mad.
Mm-hmm.
I've never known for him to get mad, but we always respected him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I like to see men be able to be firm and provide structure and leadership and compassion, all that kind of stuff. Because I know how, when my dad told us on a couple of occasions, I'm not going to whoop you this time because I think you learned your lesson. He taught me something then, and when he sat us down to talk to us, that's why I called my family together, and talk to them. And anytime we have family gathering, I try and take the time to make sure that we lift up the reason that we're together, because my dad used to sit us down and talk to us. And when I was coming as a little boy, the men would talk to the young boys back doing then. We can be out in the wintertime. They had and in small communities, and we would have wood in the big old tin can barrel thing standing out being warm, but men be talking, so I get a chance to hear men talk. It made a lot of difference being around men, and they would tell young boys, like, go school young boys on things.
Right. Yeah. Well, the roles of the male energy is important.
Yes.
Uh, because it prepares you for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, sometimes it can be a little rough, a little rugged, because whether it's your dad, or uncle, or somebody like that, they kind of keep you in line. They kind of groom you in
Oh yeah.
position to be a man. Now, one of the things I did notice, whether it's looking at my dad, my grandfather, other men around the neighborhood, you saw different ways in which men raise their children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it kind of help you in a way when it comes down to knowing some things to do. In my case, my own son.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
to get in there, and then you find some of the flaws because we all go through those up and down periods. I One of the things when we were doing a lot of dads on duty sessions, we found that some guys hadn't talked to their fathers in years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
go ahead. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
and some of them, because we started opening up and talking a little bit, they were able to either talk to their fathers or even their sons. Actually went with a brother, and I did not know that was his first time seeing his son. Son was 27 years old. He never, and we met him at a Burger King. And then one of the things he asked, he said, "Do he look like me?" And then
Mm-hmm.
kind of hit me because I'm a little slow. I was just because I didn't know. I thought he was just, but that was his first time seeing his son. He was 27 years old back then, and after that, they kind of did a bond, became closer in certain ways, and then I've seen sometimes where they did not become closer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and again, speaking of not seen your father, my grandson, his father was in the process of moving back to England when let's see, he was in the process of moving back to England when my oldest daughter, got pregnant. And so when my grandson was born, he didn't see his daddy. He didn't see his daddy until he got to be 14. So he got a chance to go over to England, and he discovered that, he saw things that were similar with his dad and himself. And he had asked me, even some years before that, how I felt about him changing his name to his dad's last name. And I said, well, absolutely, that's your dad. You know,
Mhm.
he had my last name. I said, there's nobody else in my line to carry on no male in my line, daddy's line, lineage, to carry on our last name. But absolutely, that's your dad, and yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Did he change it?
Yes, uh-huh. Not right away then, but sometime after his dad passed, he was in the process of changing it. So he did change it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's your dad. That's your dad's, and if that's what you want to do, do it. That's right.
And I know and this is the importance of males in the family, keeping contact, keeping in touch. One of the things we did put out one time, we encouraged males to reach out to some of their forgotten children on Father's Day. Just put it out there. If you was a young male, reach out to your dad. If he was an older male, reach out to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
On several occasions, uh, those things worked, and they were able to contact each other, and and make some things happen. I think people do better, especially young men, especially young black men. Young black men, when they have a good understanding or somewhat of a relationship with their father, they tend to become better people. Even in school, their behavior,
Oh yeah.
sometimes they're looking out for attention.
Hmm.
Sometimes they might join gangs or things like that, but they're looking for some type of discipline, some type of somebody telling them, what to do and how to do it. They're
Yeah.
looking for instruction.
Yeah.
So men play a vital role in that, and that was one of the things when we brought I saw Brother Antari out there. We would bring men. We said we got to help ourselves so we can help our children,
Hmm. Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
our communities.
Yeah. Because all of us, because we're men, and it's the same thing for women. We don't all just know how to be a parent, and we don't,
Right.
and lots don't know how to be a man. But everybody, one thing that everybody wants, that's love and attention. And if we can't get it in one way, in a healthy, inappropriate way, you'll get it in an inappropriate way. So that's what from thence come a lot of bad behavior, inappropriate behavior. Because we want to get attention, affection, love, and approval. But with my kids, and with me, and I think men have to be the progenitor of structure and firmness, but that also need to be able to show softness, warmness, affection. And I had an opportunity with my girlfriend once. So her daughter, we were getting ready to go out, and she don't leave a granddaughter at home. Granddaughter about 13, probably even 14. And when she told her, "Come on, let's go. We're gonna go to some place," she didn't want to go, and a friend told her again, and she was dragging. And then when she came out, she didn't have her shoes on, and my friend carried on with her, and she wasn't halfway coming. So I was in the car, and I came in, and she would tell me what's happening. So I went to her, I said, "Look," and when I went over, she said, "I'm not going to change my mind." And so I told her, I say, "Looks as a person." I say, "Your grandmother loves you." I say, and she's done all these things, and I recounted some of the things she's done, and she do this and she do that and other. I say, now I know how it is when you commit yourself to a particular stance, a position, and then you call on, and you was real firm, and like you was when I came up, and it ain't gonna be easy for you to change your mind, cause like you didn't. You giving in. You said you weren't gonna do something, and I done came in and suck you into doing it. I say I know how it is being in that position. I say, but I really wish you would put your shoes on and go with us. And I can't remember exactly how I said it, but I basically was saying I really would appreciate it if you put your shoes on and come and go with us. And she put her shoes on and came on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Influenced a teenager. That's super good.
But yeah, I had the same experience with a boy last year. This weekend I went to Juneteenth, and I did some interviews and video. But last year I was there in the park and interviewing people. I was sitting in a certain spot, and there was a little boy next to, and his mother was next to me, and maybe a family. And I interviewed people. Then I spoke to the little boy, and I had noticed him look at me a few times. And I went over a few steps to speak to him, and I said, "Can I interview him?" I spoke to him. He wouldn't say anything. I made a couple of friendly gestures. He didn't do anything, say anything. I asked, "Can I interview him?" He didn't do anything. So his mother was getting on him about not responding and being, what she said, rude. And I said, "Well, it's all right." I said, "I know how it is." I said, "But he hear me, and he hear me. And he's speaking. I can tell he's using nonverbal language." That's what I said to her. He kind of looked, So I said, "It's all right." I said, "He's all right." I said, I went and sit back over. Then in about 3 to 5 seconds, he said, "I'll talk to you." And I went over and we got to talk, and we talked about a good 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Good to break the ice.
Yeah, and I'm working in the field that I worked in. I just got a good idea, and then reading the Bible all the time. And I'm always about trying to be good and right and stuff like that. That's just how I came up. Because of my daddy those examples I gave you about my daddy and him being in church and me growing up reading the Bible, and all I was reading about was being good and such a thing, and all the kind of stuff. That's what I was that's what I was getting out of the word,
Oh,
And so I know, and I can read people pretty good and kids pretty good. So I knew where it was coming from, and I knew that he was mad because something had happened, early at home, and he really didn't want to be there. And I think I said those things to him. I know how it is,
well,
Yeah.
you brought up a good point. The biblical text, it talks about the creator God is a father figure,
Mm-hmm.
And we say God is love. So as a man, we look at, father will discipline you, but he does it out of love.
Mm-hmm.
He loves you. All those attributes of provider, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a comforter. We might not envision that in a male, but when you can embrace how you want the creator, if you look at the creator as being a father type figure, you want compassion.
Yeah.
When you feel need and compassion, you want some type of empathy, you want love, and we need those from a father figure. And when young people get that and embrace that, uh, it's good to have a two-parent component,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Because a yin and a yang,
Yeah. You got each other back. What I can't do or bring to the table or get accomplished, or a type of relationship that may be required that I might not embody, maybe she does. Because
yeah,
I believe that God is all. I mean, He's all things, and we have to be all things. And we're not actually, we're not really just God, but together, by ourselves. But together we are. That what I don't bring to the table, you bring to the table. And I'll work to the good, and it's to work to the good of whatever we're trying to accomplish. Whatever. You know.
And having that two-parent household is kind of good. It's like good parent, bad parent. Sometimes the
oh,
mom might be the good parent, sometimes the
Yeah.
father might be the good parent. And it kind of balances off, balances out with the kids. Because I know, like, when my kids were teenagers, we would all go to church. And my kids did not like going to church with us because they said it took too long. Man, it was like pulling teeth, trying to get them in church. And then there was a church right by the house they wanted to go to. And so their kid's father said, okay, y'all can go to this church. And that settled it right there. Man, you get ready, you're going to go to church. But he
Mm-hmm.
said, if they want to go to this church over here, let them go. So, and they could walk to it, whereas he and I got in the car to drive to church. So
mm,
we let them go to church. They were still in church, but,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want to be in there a long time because this church, it was a Korean church. They go there, stay an hour or two, an hour and a half, and they done. They can go back home. For us, we go to church and stay there a couple of hours or so, and they
mm,
be bored to death and everything.
You know,
So,
as adults and parents, we have to be sensitive to children. One thing I said when I was a child, it was that I would always remember what it's like to be a child, because my dad made a couple of errors with me, and he honestly thought that he was right, and thought that what he had observed was accurate, but it wasn't. And I realized that he thought that he saw what he saw, and he thought that he was accurate in what he's saying. So that taught me that no matter how right you think you are, you could be wrong. So see, I have brought that all the way to my adulthood, and
mhm.
yeah. So um, you know, so I've learned a lot, even from, and I think it's a blessing, even from the mistakes my dad made. They worked to my good, and I thank God. For everybody don't believe in God, but that's what God would do for you when He got you in His hands and under His protection. Those things, if you're a good person and you try to do what's good, even when you make a mistake, He'll cover that. He'll cover that up for you. He'll throw some dirt on it.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you look at good men, having a conversation with my dad today, just some good principles.
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
basic principles.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it might not have looked as good back then, but to be honest, to be trustworthy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to be accountable. Uh, you know, as a male, sometimes, and as you learn more through life, we go through different experiences. I've seen men that might not have had a chance to be as involved with their kids because
Mm-hmm.
of the woman in the family. They said, well, it's a little easier for me to stay away than we be fussing and fighting all the time. So, and not the, and then that can polarize kids' relationship between them and their father. Most of the time, it's their father if they're being raised by the mother. You know, so when I was thankful that my mom, when she was alive, and my dad, who's still alive, were able to, you know, rationalize even
Mm-hmm.
after the divorce. We didn't come up too traumatized,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
in my opinion, because
Yeah.
sometimes you go in the house and then, it ain't nothing ever good that she might say about him. And then you just formulate that opinion. And one of the things I find out as being a father, you find out certain things. You say, man, uh-oh, because you in a situation and you got to use whatever you can to either get
Yeah.
out of it, make something better happen from it, and that takes a lot of work. And men, uh, like you say, we have to be flexible. We have to be strong. One of the things, and then men get sad sometimes. They get,
Mm-hmm.
disheartened. You
Mm-hmm.
know, get let down. I had a brother one time. We went to see his daughter, and his I think that was his girlfriend. Man, she had left town.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that brother was crying.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't
Oh,
even tell him she had left.
I cried so much. Me and my wife, after about 8 years, separated and divorced. And I tell you, I cried so much because I never wanted to I didn't want to have that image cast on my kids that they are from a broken home.
Hmm.
And I didn't want my kids sharing their affection with another male.
Hmm.
And I didn't like it because I didn't succeed. It was best when I was married and things weren't going well, and I was praying about it and trying to rationalize it, but it didn't work out. And as I look back, it was best for both of us. But just to give you some examples, not bragging, but I think some looking at being a man in some ways. I can remember when I started paying child support. Well, as I separated and divorced, and uh, me and my wife agreed what I would pay, and I'm glad we did because I didn't have a whole lot of money. And if she had to levy on me what she thought I'd pay, I probably, I've been struggling all my life. But I can remember one time taking some money to her, and her new husband's son was around, and he said, "Oh, Miss Marie, will you buy me some tennises?" And she said, this money's for my children. I can't be buying you no such a thing." And I told her, I said, "Let me tell you something." I say, "My kids are in a household and there's a male there and he's taking care of her, taking care of you and those kids." I say, "When I give you that money, whatever you want to do, you do with it. They eating, they're living well, so you ain't got to say that for my sake, and you ain't got to count to me for how you spend that money. 'Cause I know they're being cared for and they're being taken care of, and there's a
Right.
male figure, you know."
And you bring up a good point because sometimes in some household, especially now, I mean, it's a different situation now. I've got brothers that were locked down with child support, and they lost a lot, and then uh, it would be difficult for them to have arrangements to see their kids, and then some of them were in situations where the guy that stepped in wasn't taking care of business. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
Care of the kids. And I find out that a lot of times, especially if men have daughters and they are living with their mother, it's easier for a son, but you're a daughter and you see a male not taking care of the your daughter,
Yeah.
or the mother is out there, moving around and getting around, and you say,
Hmm.
well, because I had this brother, he was fighting for custody for his daughter, but he couldn't get custody. He did almost all he could to do it, but
Hmm.
he, child support was knocking him up. He
Hmm.
spent a little violent time because him and his wife or girlfriend at that time were always fighting, and he stayed in jail.
Hmm.
So he couldn't keep a job. Plus, when they did get to him, he was paying all that money. I think black fathers have gotten bad press, labeled as absent and not available for their children, but that's not the reality
Not
of the
always. No,
people.
not. Hmm.
That's
But
true. You're right.
yeah, but one of the uh, things when I was younger, before a teenager, I made commitments to myself, and I just went through this scenario, and I said, when I get grown, I have children. I say, and if me and my wife divorce, separate, I say, I'm going to take care of my children. That I always said. I don't know what made me harp on that. So I'm going to take care of my children. I say, even if I have to live in bad situation myself, I'm gonna take care of my kids. If I get a check, if I had to live like a homeless person, both of my money gonna go to my children. That's just the way
Mhm.
I was looking at things. Um, So, and there are other men that are committed to fatherhood in those ways. There are men that are committed to being a good male figure, being a good, being a positive role model. But
Mhm.
it's not, and it's not easy sometimes. Cause see, we're shaped a lot of times by in instances by what our experiences was coming up, and even in the community. So when you see these bad role models uh and seeing that where you saw a problem, it's through talking loud, cursing, and fighting. Then we take on those behaviors and characteristics. So we need more positive role models. We need uh, male and other young boys seeing men uh, 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 give up their that uh, that what's the word be that macho position of and stance for the betterment of a situation. You know, you know, but yet and still, you are firm and you committed to who you are as a man, as a good person. You know.
I got to ask y'all a question. Uh, and I think about it over time, and I didn't think about it when I was growing up, but as I got older, out of the house and stuff. Who was your favorite TV dad? Uh, when I was growing up, there were no black TV dads. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Well,
And
no. Hmm. Well,
so when I thought about dad figures, it was mostly like westerns, and all those guys were single guys. They had killed off the women. Remember Bonanza? He had about 4 sons, Horace, Little Joe, and all them. No mama.
hmm.
What's that? The Rifleman. He had a little boy, and every week he was shooting somebody. And those were typically the men that I saw on television. And then fast forward, I think in the 80s, well, no, that's the 90s. You know, Bill Cosby. Matter of fact, Bill Cosby had a shows out then, but he had the Cosby Show, and then you had what's that? Good Time.
Hmm.
And so especially in the black community, it was you had extremes, because you had one where they was catching a little hell, and then you had one where they were there, the male figure was there. He Bill didn't play like an alpha male. He was a compassionate male, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you had the John Amos character, in good times, he was there, but he was like an alpha male.
Mm-hmm.
What he said in that, even though what Bill said in the house went down, but you kind of knew, uh,
Yeah,
when he
but
got in there.
it showed you that you didn't have to be cursing and fighting and hard to have control of your house and be authority figure. Um, when I was coming up, my mother had to tear me away from the TV. I love the television.
Mm,
She made me go outside. But I never had that alpha male type of personality. I wasn't drawn to that, and I didn't grow up toward that. I read the Bible when I was young, and I guess for my daddy praying and my mother being a good person, and when she be in the house cooking and I'm helping her, and she's always singing church songs, stuff like that. So when I looked
mm,
at TV, what I was getting out of TV was those principles of life. I was getting out of how to be a good parent, how to be humble, how to be fair, how to be a good citizen, how to I mean I was getting those, like when I
mm,
look at the Bible. I tell people sometimes, I say, well, I can't necessarily say all the things in the Bible. Uh, uh, History is true. I say, but what I do get out of the Bible, those principles for living, I definitely believe in those. Those principles of life and living. Those principles. The Bible, there's a couple of scriptures in the Bible, and it says, do those things that are good and right and fair and helpful. And then the fruits of the Spirit, it talks about joy, peace, love, long suffering, forgiveness, just like that. So those are the kind of things that I've always gravitated toward.
mm.
You know.
I think we can't hear you, Sylvia.
Do it again.
Sylvia, no audio.
Do it.
Can't hear you. But you come on in there when you feel like it, because I know you got some stuff, principles that are, in families. I think when you have, even we got Juneteenth coming up, and when you can have a male member of your family. Now, today I get more stories from my dad because we talk
Mm-hmm.
more. But when I
Mm-hmm.
was growing up, my male historical person, even though sometimes I wouldn't think he was telling the truth, because my granddaddy would sit on that porch with
Uh-huh.
a pipe, and
Mm-hmm.
he might have taken a little sip,
Okay.
but
Okay.
he told us about first black president,
Mm-hmm.
uh, this Juneteenth,
Mm-hmm.
World War II, a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize I was getting a history lesson. And
Uh-huh.
he was a good, compassionate man because he would you know he was dedicated. He actually walked 6 miles to work. Him and some other guys, and the
Mm-hmm.
ruggedness of black people.
Yeah.
Especially black men.
Yeah.
Even my dad uh, retired Teamster. In a lot
Mm-hmm.
of situations, he was the only black face there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't go in there shucking and jiving,
Yeah.
but he had to stand up and maintain
Right.
principle. Plus, he was representing uh, uh, more people that did not look like him.
Uh-huh.
And they
Yeah.
was always checking him. So I always look at the stuff, the pressure that's on a black man as a
Mm-hmm.
father.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he go to work, or
Mm-hmm.
even if he had his own business,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stress. Uh, and when they do or did come home, sometimes they didn't have the time to be, going to this and going to that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happens now, people try to do more of it. They say, "Son, I love you." They want to be spending more time, what they call quality time. But I
Mm-hmm.
still have to go back to that Denzel movie, Fences, when he was like, "Man, I'm putting food on the table. I'm catching enough as it is, you
Mm-hmm.
know." And sometimes when males are a little bit harder especially on the male children, they come out stronger, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because dad teaches us some principle. Mom might say, well, you look like he hungry, so I gave him $5. Dad said he gonna earn that five.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna get out there and do this and do that. He got chores for him.
Yeah.
You develop responsibility. So when you get into and you learn to obey authority. When
Yeah.
you learn responsibility, you learn to obey authority. You got less problems out here in the real world.
Yeah, I think those things that you're mentioning work, and I think they work well and better when they are paired with a, s- a sensitivity and some compassion and whatever. Because when you uh, put that structure and that discipline on, especially a male, but at the same time you take him to the basketball court, or y'all go to the park together,
Mm-hmm.
or you give him some allowance, or you like with my daughters. One thing I would do with my daughters is I would say to them, and sometimes I even do it now. And I tell them, some of the things I used to do, trying to psychologically get them where I want them. But like some of the skills, attributes, and whatever they have, I tell them that, oh, I like the way you do certain things. I said, when I was coming up, I didn't do that. I didn't do it like that, but you do. I really like the way type of person you are. And I say stuff like that
Mm.
too. You know.
And that helps. Like you said earlier, when you talk and communicate, that opens up so many more doors.
Yeah.
That blings. It's just like talking to the Father in heaven. You got a long time. You can cry. You can share your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what a good, compassionate, of a loving Father does.
Yeah.
Sylvia, you there? Can you get the audio right?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we hear you now, my sister. Don't want to
Oh,
leave the
okay.
ladies out.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that means, but I wanted to talk about the good parts of being a dad, the joy of being a father.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's what I want to talk about, because I remember when my baby, my daughter, she was the first child. When she was a baby, I was determined that she said mama first. I was drilling in her, mama, mama, mama. But guess what was the first thing came out of her mouth? Dad, dad. And, and he was holding her at the time. His face just lit up. She
Yeah.
said dad, dad. That's all he
Yeah.
needed to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he was spoil her rotten. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest, 'cause that was his baby.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a whole lot of joy in being a father. Get
Oh
to brag
yeah.
about your kids and
Well,
Oh
watch them
yeah.
play ball and
Oh
talk
yeah.
about all the good things that they've done.
Oh yeah.
Just like a mom do.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's wonderful. It's beautiful being a dad. Yeah. It really
Yeah.
is.
if if you could say, either through a story or one thing that you would want to share with your dad, if he was here today. I know a lot of people say, I tell him I love him. But if you could share, a story, a comment, or something that lingers in your mind and your memory about your dad.
I can't really think. I can. The only thing I can think about is when we go to church. My dad was a singer. Okay, so he like led the choir. So when we go visit with him, we were in his choir. So he would teach
Whoa.
us to sing, and we would have Bible study, and he teach us how to do things. My dad was I guess you could say, a Christian. So his ways and actions was as such. You never saw him get mad. Everybody loving Brother Hayes.
And
So
Sylvia, I see that clock ticking down. So I'm gonna get one little word in. It's ticking
okay.
down. And for me, like you say, it was hard for me until you started talking. But one thing about my dad, him and my mother didn't get as young people. They argued and they actually fought a lot. But later on, my dad was type of person. He talked to us. We talked to him. He'd tell us things that maybe he did, or he admit some things, and so we could have spent more time together. He died back when I was in high school and senior. But my dad, we was able to talk, and that's why I can talk to my daughters and things.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I can say, my dad was my first beautician because he was a beautician.
Oh yeah,
so
I had a story like that.
And that makes it hard for me to go to somebody else and pay somebody else to do my hair. I do it myself.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I say this to my dad, Preston Drummer, who's still here. My dad is a 30-year survivor of prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
My dad has been retired for like almost 30 years as well. One thing that I learned from my dad still drives. That I learned and admire from my dad is his ability to change. My dad is actually on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and his ability to adjust to change. I get a lot of that from him. I never heard my dad complain or moan or groan about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that moves and motivates you to want to emulate that. So
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So and his biggest quote is work hard, play hard, and stay out of trouble. So that's my big claim to fame from my dad. But thank you all this evening. You made the conversation good, and I think this is something worth sharing with the men in your family, granddaddies. If you still have a granddaddy or uncle, any male. When I was out today, I would send shout outs to or see brothers, me, just any meal. I say Happy Father's Day. I'm down here in Jacksonville now. But some guys say, oh, I'm not a father. I say, well, you're a brother, you're an uncle, you're a cousin. You might be a step up dad or a step in dad. I like to share a shout out to my brothers, Leon, Greg, Robert, my son Christopher, my nephews, many nephews, Damien, Jamal, Greg, Michael. All of you all have stepped up to the plate and beat down any stereotype when it comes down to males. And we, as a male, we go through ups and downs. We go through turnarounds. There's a song, Color Me Father. It's so powerful, the things that we do and our position in the family, the whole family circle. So to all the dads, give yourself a pat on the back, a thumbs up, a high five. We're not perfect, but we do our best. And with that being said, stay ready. Stay ready as a parent. Stay ready as a father, and prepare your family so that long after you gone, they still got some type of story to share that's positive, meaningful, and has some measure of success in their life. This is Reginal Drummer, the Peopleologist, and happy Father's Day and happy early Juneteenth. We'll be talking about that later. But anyway, take care. Happy Father's Day. Stay ready at all times.
And that bright and glorious morning I shall see. Oh, yes. I shall know him. I've been redeemed by the winds. The prince of the nails in his hands. I face the rising sun and the lustrous of his gleaming, gleaming eye. Oh yes, how my full soul is gonna praise him when I reach the other side. And his smile will